Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. And once again, I have my good friend Dominick from Fantasy Hot Read here with me. Dominick, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad. We've had a couple surprises in the first few weeks of the playoffs. Hopefully we don't have any more surprises this week, but we still have some really good games.
Honestly, you guys, I am looking forward to these conference championships, even though I was caught off guard by how some of these games went. But I'm not disappointed. There are going to be some good games and looking forward to this weekend. Speaking of which, let's get started on our matchups for this weekend. Both our games fall on Sunday because it's the conference championship. Let's start with our AFC championship game. That's going to be the Tennessee Titans headed to Kansas City to face the Kansas City Chiefs. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, Tennessee's really showed me something this offseason. Obviously, Derrick Henry has over 180 yards in both games. Ryan Tannehill has less than 90 passing yards in both games, but that seems to be working for him. That's going to have to work for him again against the Chiefs, who have the number one pass defense in the league over the past half of the season. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. We saw what the Chiefs can do when they get explosive on Sunday when, Houston went in there and put up 24 on them right away and then turned to the Bills Mafia and said, hold my beer and watch this, and then proceeded to give up 51 points. I think that the Chiefs are going to pull this one out, but I would not count out the Titans by any means because Derrick Henry is just a stud right now. He's playing at the top of his game, could be playing possibly better than any running back in, postseason history right now, since John Reagan took the Hogs back in the early 80s. That said, I do think that the Chiefs are going to win this one, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout like it was last week against Houston.
I am one of those people that was caught completely off guard by the Tennessee Titans pulling out the win over the Ravens. I was actually kind of disappointed, but at the same time, it was impressive to see what Derrick Henry has been able to do there with the Titans. They have been hella impressive in their wins, at least when it comes to the run game. Passing game, not so much, but they haven't had to rely heavily on that. That's why you've seen, such low yardage out of the passing game. And it's nothing wrong with that when they can rely so heavily on their ground game behind Derrick Henry. We don't need Ryan Tannehill to throw for 300 yards if you know that you're going to have Derrick Henry rush for over 180. That's damn impressive. Now they're headed to Kansas City though. Admittedly, what they did to the Ravens was unbelievable, but can they consistently do that? Can they do that in Kansas City and facing that Chiefs? I don't think so. I don't think they can maintain that type of offensive firepower where they can, push and get over the hump and be able to get a win there in Kansas City. Kansas City showed that even down by multiple touchdowns, they will come back. And keep in mind, they were down in the first quarter and came back in the second. That's how impressive this team is. When you're down multiple touchdowns and you can come back and win a damn game, the way that they won that game, that says a lot about this team. That says how good this team is, how great they're playing together, how cohesive as a unit all sides of the ball are playing. Titans are going to not be ready for that type of gameplay. And if the Chiefs are able to stuff the run and have to rely on Ryan Tannehill, he will not get the job done. I just do not feel he has the strength. I do not feel that he has the receivers that can get him yardage down the field. I just don't feel like the Titans are going to be able to get it done at the end of the day. So I definitely am going Chiefs, especially because they're there at Arrowhead, but especially because they've impressed me and shown me that even when down, they will keep fighting and come back on you and beat the hell out of you. So definitely taking the Chiefs in that one. And next up, we got our NFC Championship. We got the Green Bay Packers headed to San Fran to face the 49ers. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, this one, I don't think it's going to be as, close, unfortunately. I do want the Packers to win this game because I do like Aaron Rodgers, but we saw the way San Francisco played last week, especially on defense. The defense has been playing not so good at the end of the year. They came out and just shut everybody down on Minnesota last week. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is much better than Kirk Cousins. No offense to any Minnesota fans, but it is the case. But we saw these two teams actually play on Sunday night in the middle of the season, and San Francisco crushed Green Bay. I hope that doesn't happen again because I'd actually like to see a Green Bay, Kansas City Super Bowl, but I do think that San Francisco is the better team here, and I think they are going to be able to pull this one out and get to Miami.
This is going to be a really good game. Of the two conference championships, I 1,000% believe the NFC one is going to be a much, much tougher battle. Packers have already faced the 49ers during the season. It did not go well for them. So they're going to come in there fired up and ready to play. They're going to want to prove that was just a regular season fluke, and this is not what's going to happen in the conference championship. I liked what I saw out of Aaron Rodgers last week, even though, they didn't blow out the Seahawks, which I didn't expect. I said that these were going to be two more evenly matched teams, and they didn't blow them out, but they did enough to get it done and got the sacks at the end that helped keep Russell Wilson from scoring again so that they could come back and win. Very impressive on their part. Defense looked really, really good. So do feel like this will be a much better game than what we saw during the season. However, San Francisco, I feel like, has also gotten better and really seen the way that they've been playing. They played last week. It was really, really impressive against the Vikings. This defense, like I had said previously, I had seen Nick Bosa kind of fall off towards the end of the season. I don't know if that necessarily had to do with health issues or, they were getting fatigued, but saw him last week really step up. This team looks phenomenal. And they have a great running game. And then you saw Jimmy G again. Like I said, his relationship with Emmanuel Sanders has become more and more impressive each week, and it looked even better last week. This isn't going to be a blowout game, like you said. This is going to be a close, tough battle. Whoever has the ball at the end absolutely is going to win the game. My feeling, the way the 49ers showed me how they could play last week, at the end of the day, I really feel like it's going to be the 49ers. We're going to see a 49ers Chiefs battle in the Super Bowl, and I'm looking so forward to that happening.
Yeah, it really seems like all the teams that had a bye that actually had to play the final week had really good weeks last week, and Baltimore, who decided to sit all their starters the week 17, they came out extremely rusty. So maybe that your analytics will tell you that you should, if you have the bye week, maybe you should play them so they don't have 2 weeks to get rusty.
And honestly, I understand why you want to rest your starters, and in the past that may have worked, but I've seen of recent that hasn't worked, and it definitely didn't work for the Ravens. So yeah, that'll be something that teams will have to work on for next season. Maybe don't rest all your starters in week 17. Well, you guys, that's our matchups for this week. Some other issues. So let's talk about some of these coaching changes that have been going on. The last and final team hired their head coach, and of course, that was the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns hired Kevin Stefanski as their next head coach there. I don't know how I feel about this hire. So, Dominick, do you think that Kevin Stefanski can do well there in Cleveland, considering the ownership and considering some of the personalities that they have there with OBJ and with Baker Mayfield? Can he turn this team around unlike other coaches have in previous regimes?
I really hope that he can, but I don't think that he can. I mean, it's just like the Browns, right? I mean, they're looking at two coaches to look to hire either Saleh or Stefanski. They say, oh, Saleh shut down Stefanski, so let's go with Stefanski. That just totally seems like them. Just like when they drafted Johnny Manziel, they were told to draft Teddy Bridgewater, but they wanted Manziel anyway after doing their whole report. It just seems like like I said, like a Browns thing to do. My biggest issue here is the way that it's going to be structured, the way that whatever you want to call it, the command tree is going to be. Yes, he's the head coach. He has the game plans and everything. I don't know if you heard this, but apparently, and I don't know if it's actually true or not, he's going to have to basically submit his game plan to the analytics department on Friday, and they're going to tell him whether he's allowed to use it or not after he implements it all week in practice. So when you hear stuff like this, I know everybody likes the analytics, but you can't micromanage so much, especially with a football team. It's just, I think it's going to be a terrible result. Luckily, they gave him a 5-year contract, so when he gets fired in 2 years, he still gets paid for 3 more years. But I just don't see how this is going to work out.
I totally agree with you. I've said this 1,000 times. I'll probably end up having to say it 1,000 more. The Browns are a dumpster fire, and it starts from the top down. It is ownership until basically, so long as the Browns are in terrible ownership hands, they're not going to improve. And this even goes back prior to the Haslams with Lerner. At least Lerner did have some success there. Haslams have had no success. They haven't brought in the right coaches. They haven't brought in the right GMs. They haven't drafted the right players. It's just so many piss poor decisions that have gone into this. And Kevin Stefanski is coming into this dumpster fire situation where they're now like, hey, before something is implemented, we need you to run it through our analytics department. I get wanting to, incorporate analytics even more. Again, it's kind of similar to baseball when sabermetrics took over the league and it became very successful. And then everybody kind of wanted to go towards adding sabermetrics into their system. It doesn't always work is what I'm saying. And it doesn't always, and it wasn't used in a way where it interfered with the coach being able to coach. I really feel like whatever it is they think that they're going to do that's going to improve the team or improve the way things are played or coached, I don't feel like it's going to work. That feels like you're adding an extra step here. You're making something that should be simple way more complicated. And I feel bad for Kevin Stefanski that he is entering this situation. However, on the other end of that, I feel kind of good for him. Like you said, he signed a 5-year contract. They're going to fire him after 2 years. He'll still get paid for those other 3. And he can go somewhere and chill and definitely not have to deal with the nonsense that goes on there in Cleveland. And again, do I feel like he's a good coach? Absolutely. Do I feel like he would be a good head coach somewhere else? Absolutely. I do not feel this is a good situation for him to enter. I wish him the best. I hope things work out well for him. If they get to 7-9 or 8-8 next season, kudos. But I'm not optimistic of the situation, and it all comes back to the Haslams. At the end of the day, so long as the Haslams are there, that team is never going to improve, period. So with Kevin Stefanski getting hired in Cleveland, that means that Josh McDaniels, who was the other coach that they were considering, is staying put in New England. That being said, Dominic, do you think that there is a chance now with Josh McDaniels staying in New England that Brady will be back next season? Will they re-sign him and have him back there in New England?
I believe so. I honestly never thought that he was going to leave anyway. I mean, I know that there's been some instances of that, like when Montana left and went to Kansas City, but that was totally different. That was for injury, and Johnny Unitas going to the Chargers. I don't think that was going to happen here anyway, though. Robert Kraft loves Tom Brady too much. As much as Bill Belichick says he doesn't care one way or the other, he probably does a little bit just after what Tom Brady has done for him and his career. But Robert Kraft is the key here. If he wants it to get done, it's going to get done, and I do believe that it will get done. Whether Josh McDaniels was back there or not, I was thinking he was coming back, but now that McDaniels is back, I really do feel that he'll be back for another year.
1000% agree with you. Listen, there are some analysts out there that are saying that, New England shouldn't live in nostalgia and they should go ahead and move on. Because at some point, they are going to have to rip off the Band-Aid and move on from Brady. But just because he had a bad season this year doesn't mean that it cannot be improved upon next season. Keep in mind, part of why he struggled had to do with the quality of the receivers that he had there. He had, Antonio Brown there. That whole situation fell apart. He had Josh Gordon there. That whole situation fell apart. So this doesn't all fall on Brady on why they had the level of struggles that they did. He just didn't have the best or the greatest receivers that he's had. Now I'm not saying that in the past he wasn't able to make mediocre receivers into great quality receivers. I'm saying that I don't believe he has that same capability that he did in his 30s, meaning he has to have deep ball threats. N'Keal Harry hasn't become that yet. Will he become that? Possibly. I don't know. Julian Edelman is getting older. I don't think he's ever been that much of a deep ball threat. He's more of he's your first down receiver. He's absolutely going to get you the first down. So saying all of that, if he has better receivers there next season, I absolutely believe that these numbers that he had this season that fell off from previous seasons will improve. And we can be looking at them being back in the playoffs again, not having some fluky loss at the end of the season, that drops them down in, and then they get into the playoffs and struggle because they have to play instead of being on a bye. I absolutely think that next season they will have an improvement. And I do 1000% believe Brady will be back in New England, period. Even if they just sign him to another 1 year or 2 year deal, as opposed to signing him to another, like I said, 4 or 5 year deal. If they intend on keeping him there, he'll be 43 next season. Sign him to a 1 year, sign him to a 2 year deal, keep him there till 45, because that's when he said he wanted to play to anyway. And then both parties can walk away happy with how everything turned out.
And I completely think that, I know it was Julian Edelman was hanging out with Danny Amendola out in, I think it was like a Rodeo Drive when he jumped on that Lamborghini, after they were drinking or whatever. I really think that he thought that was Rob Gronkowski's car and he was just jumping on it to say, please come back.
And maybe they could convince him, could jump on a few more cars and maybe you could convince Gronk to unretire and come back. And maybe that's what they need.
And then somewhere Steve Harvey was saying, are you serious right now?
Exactly. Another team that has an older quarterback that is entered free agency, let's say, is the Saints. So here's my question. As a Saints fan, will the Saints re-sign Drew Brees, Dominic?
I think they will. I mean, he's taking, if you want to call it discounts, he just had a 2-year contract for $50 million. I think he could re-sign to something like that again, which I know $25 million seems like a lot, but when you're looking at the contracts the quarterbacks like Carson Wentz and God forbid Jared Goff and them are getting lately, it's not really that much. It's, $10 to $15 million less than what they're getting. So I do think that if he wants to come back, I do think they're going to bring him back for another year. If they would have gotten to the Super Bowl and perhaps won this year, he may have just gone off into the sunset, but I do believe that he'll be back for probably one more year. I think he may sign a 2-year contract, but he may only come back for one more.
Here's another situation where I totally agree with you. And again, maybe part of it is that the Saints are like the Patriots where they're living in nostalgia. But listen, they were in the playoffs. They had a chance to, be able to get to the Super Bowl. They just couldn't get all together there, against Minnesota. Maybe next season they finally are able to get over the hump, get past Minnesota. Hopefully Minnesota isn't in it so they don't have to have that issue again. I absolutely believe that they're going to re-sign him. Again, this may be another case of where it's a 1 or a 2-year deal as opposed to a 4 or 5 long-term deal, and give them, shorter, larger contracts as opposed to longer, 5-year, 100 million, 150 million or something like that. You're only going to keep them another year, another 2 years, 70 million, something like that. He will probably only stay for 1, maybe 2 if he's feeling healthy enough. But I really, like you, I think he might just do 1 more year and then be ready to walk away. And hopefully in that last year, they can finally get back to another Super Bowl, but we'll see. His legacy there is that he did win a Super Bowl. It's not like he never gave New Orleans one. He did. And so his legacy won't be tarnished if he doesn't get to another one, but it would be nice if he got to go out on top. So I do see him coming back next season, and hopefully with Michael Thomas still there and Alvin Kamara still there, if they keep Latavius Murray there, they keep all the pieces in place, then they definitely should do even better next season. Another one that we have to talk about, and this is an interesting one, is will the Chargers re-sign Phillip Rivers? Now, there was some talk that, instead of re-signing Rivers, Brady may come there, or, Drew Brees will finally come back to playing for the Chargers or whatever. Dominic, should the Chargers just stop all the little crazy talk of Brady coming there or Brees coming there and just re-sign Rivers for another season? Or is it time for Rivers to finally hang it up and just move on to the next stage of his career?
No, I think as we talked about last week on the show that, Phillip Rivers, unlike Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers does have something left. I don't know if he's going to come back with the Chargers. I think he should. I think if anything, he could have gone to the Tennessee Titans, but now with the way Ryan Tannehill has played, they're not going to rock the boat there. They're going to probably sign him to either a long-term contract and franchise Derrick Henry, or they'll do the opposite. Either way, Tannehill's coming back to Tennessee, so that really doesn't leave a whole lot of places for him to go to unless Carolina decides to get rid of Cam Newton and bring him there, or possibly like we were talking about last week with Oakland. He is the one that I think has the greatest chance of leaving his team. But that being said, I don't think he is going to leave the team because the Chargers don't have any other option unless they have the 7th pick in the draft right now. If they go out there and draft Herbert from Oregon, then they could bring him in and just totally rebuild the whole team from the ground up. But that's definitely what that would be. He's not going to come in and light it up from day one. He'll be more like a Peyton Manning, where he may have a 3-13 year the first year and then go from there, and maybe not become as good as Peyton Manning, obviously, but just start playing better after his first year. But I think if they bring in another quarterback, whether it be, like I said, like Justin Herbert, or whether it be if they go to Easton Stick or Tyrod Taylor, then that's just especially those last two, that's just a Band-Aid. So I think their best bet would be to draft Herbert and have him sit behind Phillip Rivers for a year and then bring him in the second year, kind of like the Chiefs did with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes.
The only team, and this is the reason I brought Phillip Rivers up again, is because one team that I hadn't considered last week was the Indianapolis Colts. And that's come up 3 times recently, where that is a team that is possibly looking at having a vet quarterback come in and, and be able to train up a rookie quarterback that they draft this season or whatever. And the possibility of that to me was like, that's a good idea, because it's very obvious. It's sad to say that Jacoby Brissett is not going to be the answer there. And that's fine. Then that means that you should bring in a veteran quarterback that you feel could coach up a rookie quarterback. And Phillip Rivers would be a great fit there. However, I don't necessarily know if that's a good fit for him. Again, he's starting to get older. It may be best for him to stay in a warm climate like Los Angeles, where he doesn't have to deal with, inclement weather. Not saying that, Indy plays, outdoors all the time or whatever, only when they're away. But it's just the whole point that Indy is a cold old ass city. So does he want to be there when he can be in Los Angeles? Do the Chargers want him back? I'd like to see him come back. As much as I don't like him when it comes to being on the field because he has a tendency to beat my Broncos, he's a great quarterback. And I feel like Chargers kind of have to stick with him. And like you said, just draft a rookie, at least give him 2 more years, give him the opportunity to train up a rookie quarterback, have a rookie quarterback sit behind him that he can train over the next 2 seasons. And then you guys part company or whatever. He'll be like 40 then. And so I think that's about the right time. I know he wants to come back. He was very heartbroken in his press conference at the end of the season, like, this is it or whatever, because he doesn't know his future. And I don't think that he even knows whether or not I know he's committed to playing still. I don't know if he feels like Los Angeles is committed to him. So we'll see what happens. I'd like to see him come back at least for, a year or 2 there. I don't think going to Indy would be good for him. That's just my personal opinion on that. So recent news is that LSU's coach Joe Brady is now leaving LSU to become the OC for the Carolina Panthers. Dominic, do you think he's going to be a good fit there with Matt Rule?
I think he's definitely going to bring energy there. We saw what he did with Joe Burrow in LSU. He had over 60 touchdowns this year, broke the NCAA record for touchdowns by a quarterback. Obviously, he's a young guy too. He's not even 30 years of age yet. He was just about to sign a contract extension with LSU. Obviously, Coach Joe wanted him back. He said he was going to be back, and then at the last minute, he pulled out and decided to go become the OC with Carolina. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they did win the national championship last night. I think if they would have lost, he would have possibly come back, even though I don't think they're going to be nearly as good next year. But with that being said, though, I think with him and Matt Rule, 2 new college guys in the game, I think Matt Rule is going to demand the respect of the players, and I think that he's kind of like not the opposite, where he'll demand the respect, but he's going to be more of the high energy, passionate guy about the high flying offense and things like that. He's going to bring a lot of good game plans into this. So depending on who they have back there at quarterback, if it's Cam Newton or if it's somebody else that they bring somebody in that's more like a Joe Burrow type, then I think he could do very well there. And just being that he's with Matt Rule, I kind of hope that he does do good there, because I like to see Matt Rule do good.
I agree with you. Joe Brady, when you saw him in the national championship game, you're like, holy hell, this guy brings the energy, has his players ready to play, fired up, all set to beat the hell out of Clemson, which they did, which was impressive. This was a great team. That was a great LSU team, probably on a historic level, probably one of the all-time great teams, period. And what Joe Brady was able to do with that team is damn impressive. So, while I'm sad for LSU that he's leaving, I'm happy for the Panthers that they're getting an opportunity to have someone that's so high energy and has his players so ready to play every week. Will he be a good fit there with Matt Rule? I think so. It's just interesting to see 2 college coaches come together there to coach at an NFL team. Normally you may get a college coach to come over, but he doesn't have like a lot of college coaches underneath him, because he kind of wants a little bit of NFL experience with him. But I guess, seeing what Joe Brady was able to do with the LSU team, LSU's offense in particular, and with Joe Burrow, I feel like they felt like, what? Screw it. It don't matter that we have a college head coach. It's fine that we're going to have a college OC because of what Joe Brady was able to do. I think this is it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what the 2 of them can do there in Carolina, especially if they get a new quarterback there. If they keep Cam for another year, 2 years, and they bring in a rookie, because it's clear that the rookies they had there are not any good and not the future for them. So definitely want to see what they can do. I think that this might be a good decision for Carolina. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, we were talking off air about the old boys club. It's good to see some new blood getting into the old boys club.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. So our good friend John DeFilippo is out of a job again. After just 1 year, the Jacksonville Jaguars have parted ways with DeFilippo. Dominic, is John DeFilippo should he just not be a coach in the NFL? Or do you think he's going to get another shot to be an OC somewhere?
Oh, no, he's going to get a job somewhere. He may not be as OC this year. He may go back to be a quarterback coach like he was in Philadelphia before he went to Minnesota. But he's going to get a job somewhere, as we just said about the last one with the old boys club. He's a younger guy, but he's been in the league. He's had multiple opportunities, and he's going to get multiple more. A lot of people, it's different in the NFL or in sports. When you get fired, people just think that it's more because of the culture of the team, and you just didn't fit that team. It's not because of anything like out in the real world where you get fired for a real reason. They just think, oh, it didn't work out there, but we can make it work out here. Jaguars brought him in there because they wanted to pass the ball more. Obviously, it didn't help that Nick Foles got hurt. Obviously, Minshew came in and did pretty good. Leonard Fournette actually had his best year as a pro, in my opinion, just with the passing and the rushing that he had going on there. So he actually did some good things there, and I think that's going to get him a position somewhere in the NFL this coming year.
I'm like you. I don't necessarily feel that he should be an OC again for a while. Maybe go back, like you said, and be a position coach and, earn his way back up. But we'll see. I definitely think that I feel like this was a good decision on part of Jacksonville Jaguars. But I'm so confused when it comes to them. You're going to keep Doug Marrone there. You get rid of Tom Coughlin. You get rid of John DeFilippo. I guess Doug Marrone is, covering his behind and making sure that, no one else he has to worry about any other coach there. That's fine. Will DeFilippo be back somewhere else? Absolutely. Should he be an OC? Like I said, let him go and be a positions coach for a while and earn his way back up to OC again. And hopefully that's at least another year or two away before that happens again, because I just don't feel like he was ready. And that was obvious by the two opportunities he had, and neither team seemed to, get significantly better. I won't say that they didn't get better. They just didn't get drastically better enough for him to continue to be the OC at either place, at either stop he's been at. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely feel like he'll be back, but maybe just as a positions coach for another year or two.
Yeah, it would be just like the Browns. I mean, I know they have Todd Monken there who should stay the offense coordinator even though they have their new head coach, but it would be just like the Browns to fire Todd Monken and bring him in as the OC thinking that he could work with Baker Mayfield and make OBJ something again.
I would not even be surprised. We're talking about the Browns, so let's see what happens. Well, Pat Shurmur found his way back into the league. That didn't take long. After being fired as the New York Giants head coach, the Broncos have decided to hire him as their offensive coordinator. Dominick, do you think this is going to work? Seriously, will this work for them? Is Shurmur as the OC there going to be a good fit, and will he be able to make significant strides with Locke and with that offense?
I think if Locke really is what he was the last 4 or 5 weeks there, I think he could be very good. Obviously, we know Courtland Sutton has become one of the better receivers in the league. They have a pretty good run game there with Royce Freeman, as well as obviously Phillip Lindsay. That being said, he's kind of like the coach, like a Rex Ryan, who is a terrible head coach, just like Shurmur is, but an outstanding coordinator. He was pretty good with the Lions when he was there as well, just like Rex Ryan was outstanding with all the defensive stops he had. Being able to just concentrate on one side of the ball now, just being the offense coordinator, I think is really going to help him out. I think he could do very well there. My biggest issue with the Broncos, maybe as a Bronco fan you'll agree, maybe you won't, but this team, just like the Browns, are not going to get any better until they get rid of Haslam. I don't think the Broncos are going to get much better until they get rid of Elway.
1,000%. Oh my goodness. I cannot tell you how many times I say that to people. So long as, listen, if he wants to say the EVP of football operations, cool, fine, whatever. Go be a front office person that doesn't freaking make decisions about who the hell we draft. The fact that he is also the GM, he is a terrible GM. His qualifications for what he is looking for in quarterback is tall white boy. That's it. I got friends that are tall white boys that I could probably get to play quarterback for the damn Denver Broncos. That's just, I don't get it. There's other quarterbacks he could have drafted. I'm not saying that Drew Lock isn't going to work out there. I'm not saying that. I don't know. The few games that I did see, I was kind of impressed by this kid. He's got a good attitude to be there. Is he the future of this league, of that team? I don't know. Well, I'm going to wait and see, but we got to get rid of Elway. Now, Pat Shurmur, will he be a good fit? Can he work with Drew Lock? Can he improve this offense? There are pieces and things that definitely need to be improved on their offense. Hell, the same could be said about that defense as well, but definitely things on that offense that could be improved. Pat Shurmur, even with the garbage team that he had there with the Giants, where their biggest player that he had was Saquon, and a very, very aged Eli Manning, and his receivers going down hurt off and on throughout his entire 2 years there or whatever, and dealing with egos and all the other things he had to deal with. Did pretty well with that offense. He did as well as he could. Let's say that. Were they a great team? Absolutely not. It was so many things wrong with that team. Had more to do with injuries and an aged quarterback and things of that nature than it had to do with Shurmur's coaching. So will he be a good fit as the OC? Absolutely. Again, like you said, getting to focus on one side of the ball, the side of the ball that you know that you are the strongest at, does tend to help a lot of these coaches who end up not being great head coaches, but turn out to be some of the best offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators. Romeo Crennel is still out there, and Romeo Crennel does a damn good job as a DC. Was he a great head coach? No. But is he a great DC? Absolutely. And I feel the same is true about Pat Shurmur. Can't wait to see what he's going to do there with Denver. I'm very optimistic right now, especially with that young kid, Drew Lock there. And so I'm looking forward to what's going to happen next season. And last one for you, Dominic. The 2015 NFL draft saw two quarterbacks get drafted at the top. That would be Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. Now, these two are, in their fifth-year option, and both of them did not have the best of seasons. Mariota ended up getting benched for Ryan Tannehill, who has gone on to lead this team into the playoffs and into the conference championship, as a matter of fact. And Mariota's now just on a backup role. You'll see him come in for like a couple plays or whatever on some trick plays maybe. Meanwhile, Jameis' team went absolutely nowhere. And Jameis, went for 30 for 30, throwing 30 interceptions in one season. So unbelievable to even consider. It's hard to wrap your mind around. I say all that to say this. Dominic, what should these two teams do with these high drafted quarterbacks? Should they just sever ties with both of them and move on in a new direction come next season?
Should they? Yes. I think that's going to be the case with Marcus Mariota, just because we did see how Tannehill did. So Tannehill's going to be back. So I think wherever Mariota goes, he is going to be a backup somewhere. He's not going to get a starting position, unless somehow Drew Brees or Tom Brady do actually retire, then he might be able to go there. You never know. Bill Belichick may be able to work magic with him, or Sean Payton may be able to work magic with him. But realistically, I don't think he's going to go anywhere unless it's as a backup, unless he goes to Indianapolis and competes with Jacoby Brissett. As for Jameis Winston, I would get rid of him also, but he's been a lot better. Obviously, he's been able to move the offense. He's actually been able to do something with the team other than throw the interceptions. They should not sign him to a long-term contract because he's not worth that. But maybe something like we were talking about with Tom Brady or Drew Brees, where 2 years for $50 million, something like that. If they sign him to a short-term, big money deal to see how he does over the next 2 years, and if he works out then you can sign him long-term. Otherwise, you can get rid of him and bring somebody else in through the draft after a year or two and start over again. Because I know it seems like Bruce Arians does not really like him there. Maybe he was just being blunt, which is fine, but that's not good when you have somebody that we already know he has such a fragile ego to begin with. In Jameis Winston, you don't want the coach to be talking bad about him, and he was, so he may not even want to come back at this point. But I do think he'll probably be back on it 1 year, maybe a 2 or 3 year contract, kind of like the Blake Bortles type contract. I do think Mariota is going to be going somewhere else to either compete for a starting job or to be a straight backup somewhere.
Considering the fact that he got benched, I 1,000% do not believe Marcus Mariota will be back in Tennessee. They don't have a use for him because you saw how well Ryan Tannehill has done. And again, Tannehill in the playoffs hasn't necessarily had impressive numbers, but he's done enough to keep this team moving, which Mariota wasn't able to do at the beginning of the season. I don't see him being back, and I do not see him being a starter somewhere. If he goes somewhere, if they keep him, they'll just keep him as a backup. I don't necessarily know that they want him there as a backup. And if they do, they can just sign him to like again, a 1 or 2 year deal. You don't even want to use your franchise tag on him because he's not worth a franchise tag, because then you got to pay him, the max contract for you got to pay him like $30-something million. That's insane for somebody that is not going to be your starter. So I don't see him staying there in Tennessee. Like you're saying, maybe he goes to Indy and competes with Jacoby. I don't see him being a starter anywhere. He will end up being a backup quarterback somewhere. I do not think it's going to be in Tennessee, however. Jameis, meanwhile, oh my goodness, this child, like I said, he's a mixed bag. You'll have him throw 3 touchdowns and he's going to throw probably 2 or 3 interceptions as well. He had games during the season where he threw 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions. That is so insane to think about. In a 16-game season, this man threw 30 interceptions. That averages out to close to 2 interceptions a game. That's insane. So does he even deserve to be a starter somewhere? No. Does he even deserve to be the starter there with the Bucs? No. Will Bruce Arians cut ties with him? I don't know. Again, it's the same situation. Do you slap a franchise tag on him as opposed to giving him, signing him to another deal? You can either sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal. You don't waste your franchise tag because you don't want to pay this kid $33 million at the start of the 2020 season if you know damn well he doesn't deserve to be a starter. Should the Bucs draft a quarterback again? I don't know. Or do they take a chance and bring in a free agent quarterback? We'll see. Definitely should not stick with Jameis. He's going to end up being, if he moves on, or when he moves on, let's say that, when he moves on, I feel like he's going to be a backup somewhere. Someone may give him another chance to be a starter and try to see what he can do. And he's still going to be the same Jameis Winston he has been, which is you'll have great games where he'll throw you 3 touchdowns and maybe just 1 interception. And then you have terrible games where he throws 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions. So it just is what it is. I don't feel like he deserves to be a starter. I don't feel like he deserves to be the starter there with the Bucs. I do feel like they should cut ties and hopefully he can end up as a backup somewhere, but I do not feel like he should be a starter. That's just my opinion on that.
I think he should go either to Seattle or Baltimore. That way he can have all the crab he wants.
There you go. Maybe that'll work out for him. Well, you guys, that's all the time we have for today. Want to thank all of you guys for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. Dominic, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominic, where can they read your work?
You can read my work at FantasyHotRead.com as well as Rotoballer.com and Razzball.com.
That's all the time, you guys. Enjoy the conference championship game. See you back here next week.